Okay, this is a tragedy. Okay, this
Wait, hold
is
on.
less. Wait, we can do it. We can do it. Papita. Buddy.
Elena.
That's it. That's the stream right here.
That's it. And Sophie's safe. The end.
I like how stuff wailed in the background. Oh, Papita.
I'm trying to like
What a baby.
adjust now. Hold on. God. Steph. I even heard like a Pepita. She's
I'm
here,
gonna have
y'all.
to clearly mute today.
No, it's such a joy. Actually, hold on. I don't have my napkins here. Pepa, hold on. She has like boogers. She's nasty. Y'all think she's all just cute and fluff. She's actually a little slimy snail covered in boogers because her tear ducts don't work very well because they basically don't exist.
You have been told to scoop her. Scoop her.
Okay, I will. She won't like it. I'm gonna tell you right now. Oh, you thought, bitch.
Look at that face. Look at those eyes.
She's looking for escape. Look at the camera, honey.
Once again, that is it. That is the stream. We have done it here. Oh, baby.
Okay, honey, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Now I'm covered in hair. And yes, she stays.
She will join us for this lovely adventure with the mother and father of the group.
Mother, father, children, and angel. Yeah.
Yes, correct. Wonder if the devil might also make an appearance.
The devil also Pepa. She's here. I don't know if you can hear her.
Is she purring? No, I'm having screams in the background from cats.
Yeah, the sweet baby screams.
Oh, the mic did catch those purrs.
Boogers off my mic now. Okay, good.
It was worth it. It was worth it, Raph.
My house is just slime. It's fine. This is the life I lived. My house is Nickelodeon slime. Okay, it's fine.
We're just learning so much about you today, Raph. Well, with that, I suppose it is time to jump right in. So, hello, welcome to the stream that is sadly not going to just be Pepita making appearances and purring into the mic, though we'll see if she pops up again here and there. We are live from the apocalypse. If you have not caught us before, we are a not-for-profit TTRPG studio that raises money for aid organizations and good causes. We are currently raising money for medical aid for Palestinians, so we ask that rather than subscribing, giving us bits, engaging with cryptocurrency in any facet of your life, that instead you put whatever you would have given us in that way directly to medical aid for Palestinians. And you can find the donate button where the subscribe button would usually be. If you happen to be on mobile or anything like that, you can type !donate into the chat. That will take you to the link that will allow you to donate that way. Now, as mentioned, we have put the donate button where the subscribe button would usually be. Unfortunately, we cannot disable subscribing, and so we do just want to warn you that if you seek out that subscribe button, which you do at your own peril, maybe for instance, you have an Amazon Prime sub that you want to throw our way, we would accept that. But we just want you to be forewarned that if you do, beloved Dimension 20 Brendan Lee Mulligan will kill one dog for every month that you have been subscribed. So make your choice. Donate or subscribe. You will have two very different outcomes. I think that is all it for the channel stuff that I need to do. It's been a while since I've done this because we have been on a bit of a hiatus, but this is Redacted. This is a special episode of Redacted. If you have been catching the series, we have been doing some duets, some one-on-ones, where we have let these individual, or sometimes not individual, because sometimes it's a duplex, not a house, but we have been letting these haunted houses or duplexes full of ghosts get to have their own adventures. And today we have brought back a cast member who sadly needed to step away due to time zone shenanigans, and who is now back reprising that role. And so, Raph, please introduce us to yourself and your haunted house full of ghosts.
Hello, my haunted house full of ghosts. Also, hi, I'm Raph. Yeah, haunted house full of ghosts. Last we left off, which was session 13, over a year ago, I think. I was playing Sophie Ann McAllister, a humble, precious, innocent, young grad student, just trying to do some research for her master's thesis. She was studying, I believe, psychology and criminology, and really just wanted to get that last bit of juicy gossip info for her thesis so that she would be welcomed back with open arms at her university, which she got expelled from for allowing some potential violent things to occur under her watch and breaking some sacred rules when it comes to ethical research. But that's not really her fault, okay? That's not really her fault. It sounds like it's a fault in the system. That's Sophie. And then and she is the mother of the group. That's why the group has been suffering for so long. It's because Mama is not there. And speaking of Mama, Papa is also not there right now. And that's because I was also playing the most academic and dutiful to his work, a Mr. Dr. Thurston, white clad suit, probably has a license. And one of the main, if not the main, correct me if I'm wrong, doctors of the head doctor of the tuberculosis ward of Slatethorn back in the 1910s, that was very sadly burnt down, and now we know why. Thurston, it was just looking for a little bit of, was just trying to do what he was told to do by the good Lord and make people, instead of live horrible lives, die beautiful, beautiful deaths. One that he was unable to ever have himself. And now here he is, ghost form, ready to continue his work.
We truly have missed the mother and father of the group. I mean, they have been lost without you.
Truly.
And so with that, as a very brief introduction, I am JD, and I will be playing everyone else, and exactly who that is, we're going to all find out together, because who knows what might unfold in today's session. So we begin standing in front of a pane of glass. We see reflected back in that glass one Sophie and McAllister. And it has been a while, so would you describe her, Raf?
Of course. Well, technically, it's only been 48 hours, 72.
Something like that. We are out of David Lynch's 24. That is true.
But if you need a refresher, we're looking at a mid-20s young girl. She has light blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail, little freckles on her face, bright blue eyes full of wonder. Well, we'll see what they're full of at the moment, but usually full of wonder and curiosity. When she died, she was wearing a like green little bomber jacket because it was October, very cold, and just some casual clothes, some jeans, some Converse, and at her side, as always, her trusty notebook and her phone, which is full of voice recordings of things that she wanted to make sure she kept. Interviews of people, whether they knew they were being recorded or not. That's not a question, but that's not what was asked of me. And she's probably average height. Yeah, she looks like a nice young girl. If you were walking down the street, you would probably ask her for directions and she would happily point you the right way.
Sorry, we have a boy coming to cause
So
problems on
sweet
purpose.
angel.
So we're going to see how this goes, because he is trying to investigate the computer right at this moment. Anyways, we'll let him explore. So I think actually, as you stand there, Sophie, we see you go through a couple of those recordings, and some come from before your death. Some, I would imagine, come before you even reach the island of Slatethorn. And then there's others from the past few days, question mark. Time's kind of lost all meaning for you. You're not experiencing this time the way the others potentially are, but you've seen things. You've seen a new addition to the group. You've seen that new addition get shot through the head during a morning brunch.
I know how that feels. So
It's not an unfamiliar sensation to you, or at least not to Dr. Thurston. You've seen places on the island you didn't know existed. You've seen Gwydion's accumulated knowledge and information that he had hidden for so long. You've seen the mayor of the town almost die. And you've seen time seem to rewind, go forward. It's a little unsure exactly how that worked, but that's okay, because you've been there every step of the way to witness and watch these moments and to see fear, confusion, anger, all of those emotions go through these individuals. You've even seen something you didn't think was possible. You've seen that some of the ghosts have new bodies, have been able to separate not contained just in the person who arrived at the island, but able to reassume what they looked like in the past. What does Sophie think about all of this?
I think, and again, time has been a bit of a non-linear experience. I think at first there was the biggest thing she felt was FOMO. She had so much to do and wasn't able to really do or see anything that she wanted. I think like when Rebecca first came out, that was such a huge win and so much to learn and explore about Slatethorn, about the ghosts, about whatever curses are happening. And so watching it from a distance felt at first a little hollow. She wanted to keep tabs on everyone, of course. But it was almost like when you're watching a movie and you're just yelling at the screen, begging them to do something that you know you would have done in that moment, but they can't hear you. And they just keep on doing what it is they were doing, keep on acting their way. But after a while, and I say a while, it was probably not too long after, seeing their paranoia, watching them tense up, look behind, check if anyone was following them, ask questions about who might be watching or how it is they're watching, knowing that they're being followed. Sophie began to take notes. This was exactly what she was looking for. And I think it almost clicks to her that death, physical death, meant that she was finally actually able to do what she wanted to study and do and work on her entire life. They think they're being followed, watched, stalked. There's death, an encounter of death, or some sort of new perspective of death at every corner. And there's so much fear and so much confusion. Oh, baby! Scrambly boy!
He was committing crimes. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's all right. And he's forgiven. Yeah, so she realizes that is this not the exact and perfect focus group for her studies? This is even better. It allows her to study something that no one at the university, or potentially at any university, or at any academic level in the world has ever seen. And so she watches and she makes notes and she writes.
And as you stand there, Sophie, your reflection staring back at you, perhaps glancing down at some of those notes that you've taken, a figure steps up beside you. And it's not surprising at this point, though I think there is an element of confusion that still hits each time, because you see a woman older than yourself standing there. A woman who was once your thesis advisor before you were expelled, Dr. Rhonda King. And she stands there looking out as though she can see something through that glass, and then asks, "Are you ready for today's lesson, Sophie?"
Ready? I have been standing here waiting to begin. I mean, there's so much to learn. I filled up more notebooks than I have in the past 6 years of school. Just in the past, I don't know, 2-3 days. It could be a lifetime's worth of research. Yes, let's start.
And Dr. King nods and taps on the glass. And you realize in that moment that it's not a mirror, or at least it's not a typical mirror, because you see through it and beyond. You see the familiar basement room of a library where you once held your focus group. And you see a circle laid out just as you did before, with 21 chairs sitting around it. As you look around, Sophie, there are moments where it feels like maybe it's a trick of the light, a trick of the mirror, but it doesn't look quite like the library you remember. Well, it does, but then it seems to glitch a bit, and you think you see what looks like ash and smoke and fire damage, or maybe it's black mold. It's a little hard to tell, taking over some walls and corners and spaces, but you blink and it's just shelves lined with books once again. Or you look at another part and it seems like the outside has come inside, that there is grass and plants and tangled thorns and things like that, but you blink and nature is where it's supposed to be, outside the space, not inside. But as you watch, a figure walks out and takes a seat. And you recognize Kai Caldwell. And Dr. King asks, "What do you make of him?" All right, crimes have been ended. The baby is in
Crimes
baby
have
jail.
been punished.
I feel bad. The boy is quite literally behind bars.
Oh, literal gay baby jail.
But that means he cannot eat the lights.
That's good. I was watching that happen as it was happening, and I was like, is that okay?
And so, yes, we are going to jump back a few moments. So we are going to jump in with Dr. King asking you, as your first participant walks into the room, what your thoughts are on Kai, what you have observed over these last few days as you've watched him.
Kai. Well, when I first met him, it's nice. And I think throughout this time, can I be honest? Is this like an on the record thing?
I would like you to be honest, Sophie. That is the only way for us to learn.
Okay. Kai's a coward. He has so much knowledge and potential with the people that they share. And yet, all he wants to do is get off the island. But then, he can't help but nod along with what everyone else says and does. I think, and some of them have been my own personal thoughts. It's been a little bit frustrating watching Kai. But scientifically, professionally, with an academic lens, I would say Kai is taking on the role of someone desperately looking for authority. That's my polite way of saying it. He seems to turn to the others, even turn to the dead for what to do. And when he does encounter something new and interesting, the immediate reaction is panic. Try to figure out how this is linked some way to hurting them. And then run away. I mean, we saw what happened with when they encountered Evans. It wasn't what I would have done. But again, I'm not here to study myself. And all of the data is essential. So, although I don't always agree with Kai's actions, I do think he makes a valuable and almost normal response. Yeah, I think that's it.
And so, truly recognizing, Sophie, the relevance of the fight, flight, freeze, fawn response and seeing that exemplified in Kai.
I mean, he fawned on Weston day one. So we already saw where Kai's kind of lies on that spectrum.
You mentioned earlier that Kai is someone looking for an authority figure, a leader to follow. Which one of them do you think Kai sees as the leader? And as she asks that, you see Weston, Rachel, and Mara all walk into the room, though they do not sit down yet.
At first, I thought it was Weston. And to be honest, I think Kai probably grabbed onto Weston as well pretty quickly in the beginning. Weston kind of, well, we'll get to Weston. But no, I don't think it's Weston now. I think it moved from Weston. And I think it lies pretty heavily on Rachel. I think some of that, though, is the deathly connections. I'm not sure what to call them yet. The strands between Kai's ghosts and Rachel's ghosts. They're bonded more intimately than some of the others, at least within the group. They were married. And Siobhan and Rebecca, I mean, they've kind of made up. And anyway, Rebecca probably tries to overcompensate for her actions through Siobhan. So, although Dr. Voss has a very commanding presence and appears to have a lot more information, I think Kai's current loyalty lies on Rachel. We've seen that change. So we'll see how it goes in the future. But I have a feeling Rachel is going to be Kai's rock.
That is a thorough and well thought out assessment, Sophie.
Thank you.
It sounds like, though, you could see Kai's allegiances change depending on factors, depending on who he sees as the person with the strongest authority, or perhaps the person who promises to get him to safety.
Exactly. Well put.
And what of Rachel? What do you make of her?
Now, Rachel's interesting because she does put on a lot of authority. She has an air of power to her. She's clearly used to being, if not a leader in a group, used to giving roles and giving commands and getting people's attention in whatever means necessary. Rachel seems the most connected to her group. She seems one of the most open
Well, no, the most open to the ghosts inside her. It seems almost as if she's commanded some of them as well. Through her, others have changed. Siobhan has changed. Finley has come to realizations. And the bearer. The bearer, I think, is learning where they stand. And I think that's all because of Rachel. She's strong-willed. You'd think that she, more of a fight in this situation, would be the best or most likely one to end all of this, end the cycle. But I feel like all of hers are still desperately trying to grasp some form of power. Whether that's over themselves or over the others, I think we've seen a bit of both. And I think we've yet to see where that might lead. There's regrets. But there's a lot of brute forcing through them as well.
You mentioned, Sophie, that Rachel has been the catalyst for some of these changes, for the changes in Siobhan, for example, and we have also seen changes in the others, such as Rebecca. What do you make of these changes? Do you think this is a part of the process that could lead to healing for them? Do you see it as simply falling onto another track? What are your interpretations of that?
Well, it's interesting. There's this demand to heal. Healing is the answer. And these changes have been showing that. But I think they've been a bit superficial. I'm hesitant to say that where they're going is, or how she's handled these changes is the correct way, I guess. It's made me ask more questions for sure. Can you change once you've passed? I don't feel like I've changed. And if you did, why would that matter? That doesn't change the courses of actions you took while you were alive or didn't take in some cases. It seems more like a way to comfort the living. she's had Siobhan grow stronger, more confident. But is that for Siobhan's sake? Or is that for hers? And Rebecca can never outrun what she's done. So again, is that change healthy? Or is it based on comfort? I'm curious to see if the ghosts, now that we've seen them take their own form, if they will begin to act more like their true selves and less of these muddied versions of themselves.
And you realize, Sophie, as you've been talking, that each time you have mentioned one of the other ghosts, someone else has stepped into that circle of chairs and sat down, with the room rapidly beginning to fill, even though at first it seemed like an almost unending number of chairs. And Dr. King nods, looks thoughtful, and in rapid succession asks you a question and then shifts the topic as she says, "If that's not healing, then what would you consider healing, Sophie?" And before you can answer, instead shifts the gaze to Weston and says, "You had mentioned, though, that we would talk about Weston later, so what do you make of him?"
Yeah. Weston, the all in control, powerful, strong lawyer. No love in his heart, just aesthetic, strength. I think it's clear that Weston is very good at masking his true self. Weston is more similar to Kai than he is to Rachel. I think he sees himself as a leader and sees himself as someone who takes no shit and hurries the children along. But Weston is childish. Weston's afraid. Weston hides behind petty and witty little comebacks. He hides his fear, his confusion, his worry behind long stares and silent glares. Weston has, if not already, has been losing control. The ghosts that he shares his environment with, they're the good guys, as far as he's concerned. Raven's a bit of an offshoot. And I think he's starting to realize that villain or hero, they all met the same fate. And they were good. So what will his fate be?
You had talked earlier about how those changes in Siobhan and Rebecca were perhaps simply to provide comfort rather than create any actual sustainable change, because how can change happen with what has already happened, with actions that have already been taken? What do you then make of Weston's staunch refusal to change? Is that an asset, or is that just playing a role that has been prescribed to him and will things down the same path that they've always gone down?
Well, it's a natural reaction when someone realizes that they're losing control quickly of their environment, of their circumstances, of their perceived power or perceived powerful role. They either change or they double down. Weston, in this case, is doubling down. I think he has seen how the others change and they're still stuck. So I think he's trying to win this game, and I'm sure he sees it as a game. I think he's trying to win this game by not participating.
And so we have Kai, who wants to run, and then Weston, who does not want to engage.
A bit of a freeze.
And then we have Rachel, who is trying to take on leadership, who is trying to foster that growth and change in her ghosts and others. What then do you make Dr. Voss, who you have only seen from this side of the glass, Sophie?
What I would do to have met Dr. Voss. She's fascinating. Absolutely. What an interesting person. They keep calling themselves the constant variable because they've had Gwydion with them since birth. And it is intriguing. The fact that the rest of us have had this awakening when we came to the island. But Dr. Mara Voss, it's as if the island lives in them. And they were taken advantage of because of that. Definitely. I mean, graduating so early and school and becoming almost a weapon for their research is not something anyone wants to go through. I would not consider them the constant variable. I think they have gotten used to Gwydion. And some of their ghosts are almost a security blanket. You've lived your whole life with someone else in your head. Will you ever be able to let go and be silent? think Mara hides behind their knowledge. They do know more. They have more secrets. But they're also so lonely. And not to become a little too biased in the research, but I know a bit about how it feels to be lonely and just want someone to understand you. To have that someone be a person you are supposed to part with, it must be really scary. And I don't know if they've realized that to be able to end this, if they even want to end this, they're going to have to say goodbye. Even Anna is someone they find comforting.
And that's to say nothing of the relationship with Gwydion.
Gwydion and Mara, I mean, I could write an entire, a whole series of books on the complex relationships they've had endured together and apart, and how they've altered each other, or at least how Gwydion has altered Mara. But again, we're not just focusing on them.
You spoke of loneliness, Sophie. Like you said, it is important that we do not bias the research. What is it about loneliness that speaks to you?
I didn't realize I was lonely until I came to the island. I thought this was just part of my personality. Other people had it so easy. They had friends and family and even acquaintances, coworkers. They could speak with so openly. I thought maybe I just wasn't like that I didn't want it. And it was fine, and it was normal. But then the island, then Slatethorn. And I realized what I could be, where I could be, and who I could be with. And I'm still doing this research alone. but I am surrounded by people who understand. Maybe not me, but they understand the circumstances. They understand the consequences. I helped them understand. I was useful to them, and now they're useful to me. I don't think I feel lonely anymore.
And Dr. King nods and then gestures towards the glass and says, "Well, how could you be lonely, Sophie? You're in a room full of people, and you see yourself walk into that circle and take a seat."
Have I ever been able to watch myself?
I don't think so.
Sophie claps giddily. Is this allowed? I guess I am a part of this. She opens a notebook, the one that she's been working on, and flips to a new section. And you see, like, she flips through pages just labeled Kai, pages just labeled Weston, Rachel, Mara, Rebecca, Siobhan, Russell, all of them. And there's this empty page, and you see in just thick bold, she writes Sophie. And she watches.
And Dr. King watches you and gives you a few moments to observe before asking, "Well, Sophie, what do you see of yourself?"
Right. I think I could have handled things better. I think if I could go back in there, I might be able to. Well, I know I'd be able to help. I think my role in all of this is something different. We've labeled how most everyone has fallen under fawn, freeze, fight, flight. I don't know if I fall under any of those. I tried to make decisions and was forced to follow others. Well, I did make different decisions. I didn't stay with them that first night, the only night. I was planning on talking to the podcasters. I had my own path that I was going to follow. So I don't know if I would consider myself fawn. I didn't try to fight anything. I welcomed their ghosts. And I think I was trying to welcome mine. So no fighting. On the same page, I didn't try to run away. I would never. I mean, again, this is where I found my purpose. So no flight. And even in death, I don't think I'm frozen. I don't think I'm too afraid to take a step. I mean, that's what the research is for. So to be honest, Dr. King, I'm not sure where I fall in all of this. Although, if I consider my ghosts, the one that I became familiar with, I suppose he probably felt the same way. A researcher, watching and noting. Perhaps there's another fate for us.
Another fate beyond the cycles?
Yeah, I think. I don't know if you can hear that. Gang, if y'all can hear that, it's ice cream time in summertime in the UK. It's gonna
Which is
stop.
fine.
Yeah. Yeah, it goes for like 5 seconds and then stops because it goes down every street and all the streets are very, very short. She doesn't look at Dr. King this entire time. And she says, as far as I'm aware, and again, I'm speaking for myself using my own experiences and maybe a bit of his. It feels like the cycles were meant for us. How else would we be able to do our work?
And so in many ways, Sophie, if I'm hearing you correctly, you are the spiritual successor to Dr. Thurston in more ways than one. You are bringing the work that he began to its appropriate conclusion.
I think Thurston and I have similar dreams, but I'm definitely not as gruesome as him. But we are just two lonely people who found life after death. Yeah.
You see Dr. Thurston as lonely.
He was hated, loathed, killed because of the work he wanted to do. And I'm not condoning that work while he was alive. It was certainly well, it was certainly interesting, psychologically speaking. But I mean, he also didn't have anyone who understood. So I think
Until
so.
now. Until you. At least until he died. If he had the same realizations as I did when I found myself here, and I hope he hasn't spent all this time feeling lonely. I think he probably realized the potential of the space, just like I did. And bonus, he doesn't have to kill people anymore. Do you think he wants to?
I don't think he considers himself a murderer. Whether that's correct is a different question. So, no, I don't think he wants to kill people. Killing people wasn't his goal. It was making them feel better, at least in his eyes. Was trying to make them die a worthy death, a beautiful death, a poetic death. And I think he's still trying to do that. I just think it's more of as a guide and less of a kind of dark, brutal, you know.
And as you trail off there, Sophie, Dr. King, you realize, is looking directly at you. She's no longer looking at the room where almost all of the chairs are filled. There are 20 figures sitting in them. And she asks you, do you think he considered your death beautiful? And as you look out at the room, you see that things are starting to change. You realize that each of these figures, even the ones who, to your knowledge, are still alive, look in some way almost translucent, like a copy or an afterimage of themselves. And there start to appear different wounds and markings and changes on all of them. Some that you knew happened. You were aware of how some of them have died, so you see different gunshots, knife wounds, things like that open up. But you also see what appears to be at least a non visibly violent death in some, just the color draining, lividity appearing in the body. And you see yourself sitting next to Dr. Thurston. You see Dr. Thurston's suit, that white suit, becoming red with blood, black with smoke and ash. You see yourself, wounds opening up on your bodies, burned flesh from where the fire touched you. What goes through Sophie's head in this moment as she watches?
I think the first thing is anyone reacting to this? Is Thurston specifically reacting?
No, every figure sitting there appears as calm and at ease as they were when they first sat down. And that's something you realize as you're reflecting on this is despite what you were talking about with the paranoia, the fear, fawning, freezing, fighting, trying to flee, no one's been exhibiting any of that. They have simply come in and taken their place and have sat there quietly. And so, as these wounds open up, as blood starts to trickle onto the floor, as the room starts to fill with the smell of smoke, and as ash starts to coat things, no one reacts except for you behind the glass.
Sophie stares at her body. Her death was unconventional. She was shot in the head, in a way, wounded, I think, on her throat, but it wasn't her. And yet, she sees the stains still appear on her clothes, the dried blood from her forehead. And she is quiet for a while. And then says, "Did he think it was beautiful?" No. I think it was necessary.
And Sophie, you've been looking out at the room, seeing that space start to change and warp as the bodies within it start to exhibit their final moments, or perhaps the final moments that may be coming to them in the future. You can't be sure on that. That isn't something you have data for. And so I think it catches you off guard when you hear a voice that once belonged to Dr. King but no longer sounds like her, ask you, "You say that I wouldn't have considered your death beautiful. What death would I have chosen for you, Sophie?" And you realize that that is now Dr. Thurston standing beside you. And maybe it was the entire time, but regardless, he's there now.
I think Sophie finally tears her eyes from the room and looks up at Dr. Thurston. And says, "For me?" Slow, like a fall leaf becoming soil. Something to be remembered by. Something to become a part of the earth, a part of the bigger picture, a larger canvas. If I was to be a muse, then maybe something that would have granted me more time. Time on a broken clock.
I think if you agree that he gives you an approving look to that response. And then reaches for your hand and says, "I had the pleasure of seeing your death. Would you like to see mine?"
Sophie doesn't respond. She just turns back to the glass and slips her hand into his.
And I think that is an excellent spot for us to take our break. And we will then see what happens next. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back in 10 minutes. But it is true. You get to be a part of this without any of the Rammies, potentially.
No Rammies for me.
No Rammies ever. For
No
any
Rammies.
of your characters.
Yeah. All my characters are safe. No one can touch me.
And no one makes
Also, hi,
any bad
Raiders.
choices. Yes, hi Raiders, welcome. This is Redacted. This is a psychological horror game, and we are doing a little fun one-on-one session. With that, since we do have Raiders, just some content warnings to make note of. This is a game that involves some pieces of content that might be upsetting or unsettling to viewers, so just be forewarned. This does include cults and cult activity, manipulation, and gaslighting, particularly for what we are about to jump into: murder, body horror, gore, fires, medical abuse and neglect, and things like that. So if any of those would be crossing lines for you, do what you need to do to take care of yourselves. We have plenty of other games that do not involve this content. But if you would like to stay, we are jumping right into Sophie getting to observe and experience Dr. Thurston's last few hours before his death in the tuberculosis ward fire. So
It's an honor and a privilege.
I mean, truly, like this is going to let you in on the big moment, the big secrets, the big reveals. So, Sophie, you reach out and take Dr. Thurston's hand, and you blink, and it's a little strange because before it was Dr. Thurston inside of your body, but now you're there, getting to experience things fully in his body. You're getting to see through his eyes in a direction that usually didn't happen, though I will say you and Dr. Thurston were another unique set of variables in the ways that the two of you interacted. Given that his wounds became your wounds there at the end. And so with that, you blink and you're standing in an office, and it's a familiar office, but would you remind us what Dr. Thurston's office looked like on the TB ward?
And I'm probably not going to get this right because I know I've described this before, but it's, again, IRL time been a year and a half or maybe more. So, you know, this new description is the real canon. Old description was dream canon. Dr. Thurston stands behind his desk. It's a strong wooden desk, several drawers on either side. You know the type. He has not decorations, but necessary instruments laying on top of it. Notebooks, papers, pens and pencils.
Any scalpels?
Well, his more intimate tools he keeps to the side or on his person. Scalpels, needles, and anything else he might need in a moment of crisis. Of course, it is a tuberculosis ward, and crisis happens every day. He keeps on a small table, barely a table, more like a sliver, like a standing shelf almost, right by his desk. So that if he's not working on papers,
if he's called somewhere, all he needs to do is grab them and go. The rest of the office is very plain. There's a wardrobe, standard, extra clothes, as he basically lives at work, extra suit jackets, shoes, other doctorly needs, shelves and shelves and shelves and shelves of notebooks. They don't have anything written on the spine, but if you would open one, you'd see they are full of names, numbers that match room numbers, and descriptions, notes. I think other than the strong desk and the set of tools by his side, the thing that makes this room different is that it's covered in art. Some of it incredibly well done. Some of it looks as if it's been done by a child. But all of them of people.
And I think there is a moment as Dr. Thurston and Sophie are observing this space that there are a few items that appear incongruous to the time period, because Dr. Thurston would remember he hadn't filled all of those bookshelves with notebooks. He had extensive notes, but there needed to be space for more. And he would realize that there are now notebooks on the shelf that were previously empty. Notebooks similar to the one we just saw in Sophie's hand. But maybe it's a trick of the light because you blink and they're gone once again. But for a moment, they were there. And I think for Sophie, that feels right. I won't speak for how Dr. Thurston would feel.
I think Dr. Thurston is not one to give away how he feels. But if Sophie wasn't glued to the window, to the mirror, she would have probably seen the Thurston standing next to her just give her the quickest glance.
Dr. Thurston, as you stand there, I don't think it registers for a bit because right now it's more ambient noise. You are hearing what perhaps sounds like some sort of vague commotion from one of the other floors. But I don't think you would pay it that much mind because that's a tuberculosis ward. I mean, these things happen, and if you're not being called, then it's not an emergency. But you would just become aware of the fact that there are voices, there are sounds in the distance of doors opening and closing. But you have other work to be doing, and I'm wondering on this night, what is that work?
On this night, I think Thurston stands behind his desk and reaches back to one of the notebooks. He knows exactly where all of them are and doesn't have to think twice. So, despite them being full of names and information, they're in a particular order. He reaches and plucks one off the wall, off the shelf, and opens it to a page labeled Elliot. He reads, thumbs over some of the notes, and we see him make a decision. And I think as he closes the book and puts it on the desk, quietly, we just hear him say, I suppose it has been a while. And he jots down the date under Elliot's name.
It is a bit of an aside, but I do have to ask, when it comes to the journals and notebooks lining the walls, how many are reserved for fellow employees of this institution?
On the walls, none. He keeps those in a special compartment in his desk. His office is usually off limits, but this is a hospital, and sometimes people need to step into places they are not usually allowed. So he keeps those a little bit closer to heart.
And I think we as an audience look towards that compartment, but we can't linger there long because Dr. Thurston, I would imagine, is making his way out of his office at this point.
Yes. And clicking down the hallway with his fine shoes over to room 256.
A room of one Elliot Davies and Russell, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. A lot of the patients had to share rooms. A lot of people were getting sick. It was a strange time.
And I would imagine that this is a room you've had your eye on, given that Elliot has been declining rather rapidly, while Russell has been managing the symptoms thus far.
It is a bittersweet room. One of them one of them is being stubborn, and the other has become quite a special muse.
What do we see through Dr. Thurston's eyes as he walks into the room and sees Elliot? As he sees Russell, how does he see each of them?
I think the rooms themselves are quite small. I think this one even was not originally a room. I think it was a closet that was emptied out when the rest of the rooms have been filled. And because they're children, it's a little bit easier to have them fit. I think he walks in. He does a polite knock, a doctorly, just 2 touches to the door. And knows exactly where Elliot lies. He doesn't move. He's been having trouble moving lately. Elliot is getting along very well. His skin is grayed, desaturated, the pinks in his cheeks gone. You can almost see the veins on his neck and on his face. Eyes sunken in, pale, like a ghost, a skeleton. And Thurston smiles. And then his eyes, as if he'd forgotten, land on Russell, who looks fine. Russell sitting on his bed, legs dangling, watching over Elliot like he's some sort of guardian angel, like he's some sort of protector, like as if being next to him was going to save him. And Thurston looms over him and says, "If you have the strength, I suggest you run along. I need to tend to Elliot's wounds."
And Russell doesn't seem particularly inclined to leave.
Did you not hear me, boy? Leave.
And Russell starts to go to the door. So that is when you, Dr. Thurston, hear the noise growing and growing. It sounds like something is happening on another one of the wards. And I don't think you can quite catch what is being yelled, but there is a phrase or a word that keeps coming up over and over again. It's just too muffled to hear.
I think you see him start like as Russell like passes by him and goes toward the door, you see him like begin to pull out his scalpel. And as Russell opens the door and the commotion becomes much louder, he flinches. Puts the scalpel away, and there's like a moment where he's unsure if whether he should just ignore this commotion because something poetic is about to happen today in front of him, or if he needs to deal with this. And you see he makes a decision that he needs to deal with this. And as he opens the door, he just kind of, not aggressively, but kind of just like as if he was just part of the door, just kind of like pushes Russell out of the way and walks out into the hallway.
And as you step out there, Dr. Thurston, you hear words a little more clearly. You hear your name being called.
Damn. Thurston doesn't run. He walks promptly to where his name's being called.
And it takes a bit to reach the ward given that pace, but you already are getting more of a sense of what is going on as you're approaching, because in the end, you don't need to hear the fact that the word fire is being yelled over and over again. You can already start to smell the smoke, to feel the heat. The hospital's burning.
As soon as that realization clicks, he begins to sprint.
And you run into chaos. Just absolute chaos. There are different orderlies and nurses and other staff trying to guide patients out of their rooms. There are patients who are too sick to be moved, so some of them have been left just laying in the hallway because no one has the strength to carry them or the time to do that. And through it all, you can feel the smoke already starting to sear your throat as you breathe it in, even though the flames are barely visible where you are right now.
Where are water? We need water. Where are the buckets? Has no one made a line? Where's the sand? Drop the patient. Let's tend to the fire first. If the building goes, then the patients will go with it. And I think he just like runs toward the fire and tries to see. I think actually he does run toward the fire. I think there's a moment where he there is that panic of I can't lose this. And then the logic takes over and he starts to think, how did this happen? This is a hospital. And I am very careful. And so as he approaches a fire, I think he wants to just like see if anything seems out of the ordinary.
Yeah, I was definitely thinking this seems like a let's do a roll about it.
Shit! Oh my god, a roll. Wow. I do have white dice. Everybody.
Oh,
They got little flecks of blood in them.
I regret this so much. So I'm gonna ask you, Raph, do you think that this is more of an awareness-based role or more of a shadows-based role?
Interesting.
And I think in some ways what I might say with that is I would give you the option. I think if it is Dr. Thurston rolling, it is probably an awareness roll. But I think if it is Sophie watching,
that's what I was thinking.
Yep. So let me know what you would want for that.
I think even though it's worse, I think this is Sophie. Because I think she also has a bit of that. She's like, oh no, a fire. And then she's like, wait, a fire in the middle of a hospital? That's in the 1910s. And so seeing Thurston search makes her also search. So yeah, I think we'll do shadow, which is not, it's 0, gang. So I have to roll this twice. Hold on. Actually, let me get, here we go. Not good. It is a 4.
All right, so yeah, that is definitely a marking insight roll. So I think with that, Sophie, part of the reason you're not able to see things clearly is, well, to be frank, because you just died in a fire yourself. And I don't think you can look at those flames without remembering how it felt when they seared your body. And with that, you have a lot of information about this. You've gotten to see moments and heard things and talked to all of the different ghosts and seen things that technically you were the only one who saw outside of the person who experienced it. And yet you can't seem to hold on to any of those. This is a fire. The only thing you know is you need to get away from it.
Yeah, I think watching from the mirror, there's even an instinctual, like, she closes her eyes and looks down. For a moment, and then remembers that this is a gift and forces herself to watch again.
And I think then for Dr. Thurston, as he is standing there, it is not dissimilar, but it's in his own way, in that like, well, he has that very reasonable question of how could this have happened? And you're going through the options. You're, thinking about the fact that it could have been the fact that somebody left combustible material exposed in a way that you never would have allowed. But you can't trust that these orderlies and nurses and even some of the other doctors would do their jobs the way they're meant to. So you are considering that, even though it seems strange. But your focus needs to be on how to put this out, because you can already see a piece of the hospital is already lost, and it is just growing by the moment.
He turns, I think he has like he's like trying to cover his face from the smoke. I think he even like in his pocket, he probably has some sort of like handkerchief he can like tie around his face. As the smoke gets thicker, and he just mumbles under his breath, useless, useless. They're all useless. And just begins to run to find like where they keep the stash of buckets to bring it out to a well nearby, and trying to find out like what are people doing about this? Like, clearly there's a fire. Like trying to like at anyone he passes, he's just like, drop the patient, come with me, we're going to go sort this fire out now. Doesn't care if they see like the potential like malice seeping through.
And you are the head doctor of this hospital, and so for the most part, in fact, I think all of the nurses and orderlies and other staff members that you walk by and give that order to do as they're told. They start abandoning the patients. They start moving outside so they can create a line to bring water and try to put out this fire. And I think as you're watching this, Dr. Thurston, you feel more and more of that anger starting to burn you up already, because you're seeing that there is not going to be a way to save at least all of this hospital. You already have a wing that is mostly charred and burned, and there aren't fire doors or things like that to stop the spread. It has gotten ahead of you. And I think that brings up the very reasonable question of, how did no one see this coming? How did no one catch this soon enough? Because it has already burned through so much.
I think seeing the fire begin to lose control, seeing his beautiful work beyond being like it's more than just being taken away, it's being erased, it's being turned to ash. And I think he was probably one of the people in the line handing the bucket of water to and fro. And when he realizes that, he drops the bucket and runs inside. He runs to his office. He runs his hands, his fingers over the spines of the notebooks, almost as if he's going to choose one.
And then you see the hand pass by that shelf into the wardrobe, into one of the drawers in the wardrobe. Rolled inside of a sock in the back, forgotten, of his collection of clothes here. Is a small vial. It is a vial containing this thick red liquid. You see he looks at it. And he looks at his notebooks and at his paintings on the walls. Poetry, the beauty that is being lost here. You see tears streaming down his face. But he holds the vial up and says, "We can begin anew." And runs out of the office.
And as you, a few moments before you run out of the office, as you stand there looking at the vial, it's a little hard to gauge if this is somehow things from Sophie seeping through, if it's one of the many weird time and space anomalies, but you see that office reflected back around you. You see that office after it's burnt. You see edges of those drawings curled in, some that are entirely ash, some that are already just scattered remains on the floor. All of those journals reduced to nothing that could be legible. You see all of your work destroyed in front of your eyes. Not just imagined, but what you know it is over 100 years after the fact. And you realize
I think
how few people even remember your name.
Thurston. Fuck. I think the Thurston standing with Sophie, she feels his grip on her hand tighten to a point where it becomes painful. She feels that sense of loss. And maybe it's because they shared a mind and a body. But there are tears down her face as well.
And we move away from the two of them back to the Thurston of the past. And we see you running down the stairs. I'm guessing intending to head towards the door.
Intending to head towards the door. He carries the only thing at this point, not that will make this worth it, but that will make this even remotely okay, which is that vial containing blood tainted with tuberculosis.
And we watch as you push through one of the sets of doors, coming face to face with Ivy Finley, who, contrary to your orders, you can see has been continuing to get the patients out of their rooms, getting them to safety. In fact, I think you briefly see Russell disappearing around a corner in that moment.
What do you think you're doing? You're wasting precious time. Deal with the fire.
And Steph can certainly yell at me in the chat if I am not capturing things accurately, but I think Ivy looks at you with a mixture of shock and disgust and says, "The hospital's lost. I'm getting the patients out while we still can."
You are one. How do you decide which patients get saved?
If your priority was saving the patients, you should have instructed more people to help with that. I'm going to save as many as I can.
Who did this? This is a well put together hospital. I keep things in order. Who did this?
Do you really want to be having this conversation as the hospital is burning down around us? We need to get people out of here.
You said it's lost. You said it's lost.
But the people aren't. We can still save them.
No. I thought I could save them. But there's someone, something has decided to infiltrate their salvation. They were not supposed to die this way.
They don't have to die this way. We can still get them out of here.
Ivy, where's Dr. Finley? Where's James?
I don't know where my husband is. I would assume helping the rest of the patients get out of here.
I think he watches her for a moment. And then his face relaxes a bit, almost forcibly so. It says, all right, who's next? You're the judge. You get to decide who lives. Who are you going to carry to safety?
And she doesn't answer. She goes to continue on her way down the hallway.
He steps in front of her.
Dr. Thurston, you asked me who will live. I'm trying to go save more people while we still have time for that, and I can't do that with you standing in front of me.
Who? You've decided to play God. You choose who lives. Name them. Or rather, name who doesn't. Who deserves to die in this lame, this hell?
None of them deserve to die in this hell, Dr. Thurston. The only person who deserves that, as far as I'm concerned, is you.
I think when she says that, he reaches out and grabs her. I heard that. Steph!
I think just for, shits and giggles, I think I'd like you to roll with physicality.
Not physicality. My boy's weak. Is he weak? Actually, hold on. My boy's weak.
Is it a negative?
It's not. It's a 0,
Okay.
but
Not terrible.
Not great either. That's double 6s.
I mean, we love it when the dice tell a story.
Listen, the dice have an opinion, and that's not for me to say.
And so what do you do, Dr. Thurston, as you grab Ivy Finley?
I think she's trying to walk past him, and he just reaches out and grabs her shoulders and just clenches, holding her still. And I think he just leans in and starts whispering. Not even whispering. I think he quietly starts saying to her the names of the patients that were on the verge of death from TB, the ones that he knows she won't go to. Elliot is on that list.
And I think it is actually Elliot's name that is what gives you the first response, in that she's kind of been frozen as you've grabbed her. And when you say Elliot's name, she says, he's already dead.
I think she sees Thurston's face drop from that. And says, I have lost everything. All of my work. The reason I was put here. The task that God Himself gave me. It seems the devil and hell is testing me. And you, who claim to help, who claim to save, you could never understand. You are not a shepherd. You are not a lamb. You are a nuisance, Ivy Finley. And I think he takes out a scalpel. And I think he tries to like slit her throat.
So we'll resolve that in a moment because two things happen first. The first is, as you say those words, Dr. Thurston, as you specifically say the words, the devil, there is a feeling of the hair on your arm starting to rise, but not in the usual sense of like being watched. That's a part of it perhaps, but this is more like static in the air. And you don't see anything, but you feel that. You feel a shift around you. And I think that is what gives a moment between then and when you lash out at Ivy with the scalpel, because it gives her a chance to say, I might not be the shepherd, but at least I'm not a slaughterhouse. And then I'd like you to roll with physicality.
Ivy. Steph, listen. the like playbook name is villain. All right. The playbook name is villain. I have a role to play here. I have a brand to uphold. What am I rolling? Physicality?
Mm-hmm.
The devil is on your side, Ivy Finley. I rolled a 6.
Incredible. We love it when the dice tell a story. And so, Dr. Thurston, you attempt to slit Ivy's throat, and it just so happens that in that moment, perhaps because you've been thrown off by that feeling of static, she's able to shift out of the way. Not out of the way entirely. You do cut her and she is bleeding, but you're a doctor. You know that you did not hit anything vital. And you can see now that she is running, not in a clear, thought out way of getting to the nearest exit, though. She is just trying to get away from you. What would you like to pursue?
Thurston looks around at his burning canvas, and watches as Ivy stumbles and begins to run, hand on her neck to try to staunch the bleeding. She called him a slaughterhouse. The devil is here. He has lost too much. And I think even the static that played on his body and around him, that fraction of a moment, I think he no longer feels the burning of the smoke. I think he doesn't feel the heat of the fire. I think he just sees Ivy running. Why should she live? Why should she survive? Why should she have the audacity to play God by choosing which patients survive, knowing that she would be safe? Thurston's not here to offer safety. He's here to offer salvation. And if her death can't be poetic, then at least it will be on his terms. And he begins to follow her.
And I think what we see here are a series of images as Dr. Thurston pursues. We see Ivy not able to help but look over her shoulder to see if you are following. We see your shoes hitting the tile floor as you go after her. And I'm wondering what we see of the tableau of her body when Dr. Thurston is finished with her.
I think you see him step away. She was laying on the ground, and we see him kind of hovering over her, looking like he's working on something. And then as he steps away, we see what it is he was doing. Ivy laying on the ground, in a pool of blood. Hair beginning to soak. I think you see he's taken the time to pull her hair up and like splay it out on the ground. Her arms are crossed over her chest as if in prayer. Her eyes closed. I think he took the time to sew up the nick on her neck. That's not right. And I don't think we can necessarily see it. But I think what we can see is the blood beginning to soak through her clothes, across her shoulders, down her body. The length of her torso. There are bruises on her hands and on her arms, maybe from a fight, maybe from trying to live. But as the blood soaks through, we see her body has become a cross. As Thurston steps back, I think he looks at it. The fire is beginning to creep in. It's close. It's licking at his shoes and at his trousers. The heat begins to come back. The vision of Ivy's body begins to blur from the smoke. He has a realization that when you cut into a torso, medically, it is always in that sign. Across the chest and then down. And I think as the fire begins to crawl up his body, I think he smiles. And says, even this way. God's work is beautiful.
And as you stand there, Dr. Thurston, body beginning to be engulfed in flames, we see that vial of blood no longer in your hand. I would imagine perhaps hidden in a pocket now.
I think he tucked it in Ivy's hands,
In Ivy's hands. Okay, so
clutched to her chest.
we see that vial of blood starting to bubble in her hands. And it's again a little confusing as to where and when and how and why this is happening, but perhaps once again it is the fact that Sophie is here on this journey with you, because for a moment, Dr. Thurston, there's once again that sense of an image being imposed on top of what you're seeing of Ivy's body. This of a young woman on a playground, laid out in a similar way, decades upon decades upon decades later. And I think we pull back, moving through the glass and returning to where Sophie and Dr. Thurston are standing. What is Sophie's reaction to not just witnessing, but experiencing all of this?
Sophie, there are tears in her eyes. They're bloodshot. Not sure from the crying or if experiencing that smoke has almost translated physically to where she's standing. I think she does stand there for a long while and just watches the hospital burn. And then very slowly turns to look at Thurston standing next to her. And she, in that moment, recognizes that they are not the same. And quietly, a mental note. she thinks. She's unsure. Whether what she feels is flight or fawn.
And I think that is where we are going to leave this episode of Redacted. This was truly, truly a pleasure, Raph.
We went places I did not expect. So
We went so many places. But it was delightful to see them.
Sorry,
I mean,
Steph.
we saw the mother and father again. So, you know, that
Hand
is
in
the most
hand.
important part. Yeah.
Yeah. Lots happened. I have to think about things. I know it. Listen, things. It's all good. No, Mama's never going to divorce Papa. You heard what I said at the end. You never know.
You know what? We'll see. This is a game where we find out an RP all the time.
Exactly. It's true. It's true.
All right, Raph. I am going to, in that case, let us move to our outros. So remind us of the cool things that you're doing and where people can find you for some amazing other games, because this was fucking incredible.
This was so fun. It's been a while. It's been a long time since I've gotten to reprise Sophie, and I was only thirsting, I think, for like 2 episodes, an episode and a half, maybe. So what a joy to play the worst human being possible. Truly reaching into my depth and trying to pull out just the worst like creature. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. The rest of you, good luck. But yeah, I've been Raph. I played Sophie and I played Dr. Thurston. Sorry. And what else? I don't even, my brain is just like overloaded now. What else am I doing? I am yesterday and every other Saturday, I'm in Class Reunion, a less intense game. A more calm, kind of. We're in a bit of a pickle at the moment. But you know, it's a homebrew 5e game. I play Max Miller, Barbarian Warlock. Yes, I know those playbooks don't, or those classes don't go together. But it's about narrative, baby, and that's what it's always been about. And you know what? Max is good. He's gonna get to kill Mance, and Hunter is not mad at him, so he's good. Things are good with Max. And then another thing is, starting soon, at some point, I think next month is the goal. All things go according to plan. I will be in a game over at Entropy Emporium, which is my first game on Entropy Emporium. GM'd by JT. We're playing a fun new game, which I don't know if I'm allowed to say the name of the game. I don't know what's been announced. I just know that I don't know about. Anyway, the name of the game is called Star Shard. The actual
It's been
game
announced.
playing, well, yeah, Star Shard's been announced, but I don't. Did they say what the book was? I don't remember. Anyway, it's gonna be great. It's basically an anime game. I get to play a little obnoxious anime protagonist boy named Fernando Leon. He's just a little bug boy. He's just a little bug boy who has big dreams. You know what I mean? It's all good. And yeah, that's it for me right now.
Listen, I love that for you. And from my side, I do a variety of things. I've stopped usually putting out anything I'm doing unless it's like within the next week. So you can find me with the Bardic Inspiration Network this Wednesday. Hopefully, Tech Gremlins behaving that time for a Cyberpunk Red game, Project Hope. And then you can theoretically, possibly also find me here on Thursday for Neverember's Enigma, where I play a changeling rogue / something else, but don't worry about it, who has never done anything wrong ever in their life. And then these next few weeks are going to be weird for me because I am doing a whole bunch of traveling and will not be here a whole lot, but I will be coming back. As mentioned, this was the first return to GMing in a bit, and I will be back with both Redacted here and They Call Us Villains over on Entropy Emporium in the relatively near future. So I'm excited for that.
And what a return. Thank you so much.
This was a wild way to return. I loved every second.
Wild way to return.
And so I am thinking, so we can give Raph a chance to decompress before they need to sleep, that we're going to pop over and raid Tales from the Table Studios. They are currently a couple of our friends. In fact, one of our cast members for this game is over there right now. And we will go give them a warm welcome since they are doing Sundered Skies, their premiere episode right now. So be friendly, say hello, and Raph, since I have to put this on you because it is only you, say good night to everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.